All right, so I want to talk to you about firing temperatures. We've talked about firing temperatures before, but we've never really looked at a temperature range for these different firings. So what I have here is the firings that we do most often in the studio. So it's not every possible firing, but it's ones that'll kind of give us a range of things. Now, you'll notice I have two timelines. I have this one and this one, or temperature gauges. This top line is a faster firing. So if we fire the kiln faster. This one is a slower firing. So basically, if we heat it up nice and slow, our cones are going to be a little lower temperature technically. So remember, in the studio, we measure the temperature or technically the heat work of what's going on in the kiln based on cones as well as temperature. So cones measure heat work, time and temperature. They are more precise in telling us what's going on in the kiln than are the temperatures themselves. So let's start with bisque. So this is our bisque temperature here. We bisque to 06 in our studio. Some people bisque a little bit hotter, a little bit cooler, but that's where we bisque to. Cone 06, if we fire quickly, is 1855 degrees Fahrenheit. If we fire slowly, we don't have to get quite as hot. It's only 1798. Now, those are pretty close to each other, and that is our bisque range. Now, when we glaze fire, that's the other main firing we do. Most of the glaze firing we've already done. Our cone 10 reduction or oxidation firings are both measuring, remember, cone 10 is the measurement of the heat work, the time and temperature. If we go faster, we're going to get to about 2381. If we go slower, we're looking at 2284 or somewhere in between there. That's a high fire temperature. So that is significantly higher than our bisque temperature down here at 06. Now you see I've got some other things stuck in here, some of which we do in the studio, some of which we don't. If you're a hand builder, you might be firing some of your stuff at what we call low fire temperature. You might be firing it to cone 04, which is just a bit hotter than cone 06. At low temperature, at 04, if we go fast, that's about 1971 degrees Fahrenheit. If we go slow, about 1915. So a little bit of difference there. These temperatures in our kiln are not yet vitrified. Our clay is porous, or I should say our ceramic is porous. It's clay if it's way over here, right? It hasn't been fired yet. If we fire our work up to high fire temperatures, then the ceramic itself is vitrified. It's no longer porous. Some studios fire to cone 6. Notice the difference, cone 6, cone 06, pretty different temperatures, 1855, 2269. Cone 6 is a mid-fire range of work, and some people have clays that are mature at that temperature. Our clay is almost mature, but not quite at that mid-range temperature. Way over here, oh, sorry, one more, and that is raku. We don't always stick a cone in the raku kiln, but a raku kiln is just a little bit cooler than our bisque kiln. A pit firing is just a little bit cooler than that. We do sometimes do what are called enamel firings. These are things that intermediates might do where they where they fire decals or metallic kinds of glazes, or over glazes is technically what they are. So those might fire to around cone 022, which is a little bit different if it goes fast versus slow. So big difference between the enamels, those low fire things. These are the ones where you have a metallic on your cup and it says you can't put this in the dishwasher. That's because they can scratch at this temperature. Way up here, those surfaces start to become permanent surfaces and they aren't impacted by the dishwasher. So when I ask you about cones and temperatures, I want you to remember that there's a little bit of a range in your temperature relative to your cone. I also want you to remember that cone 06 is cooler than cone 4, and cone 06 is not the same as cone 6. And then the last thing I want you to remember, or the first thing maybe, is what cone we fire to. We do our oxidation and reduction firing to cone 10. We do our bisque firing to 06. Hand builders might also fire low temperature to 04. We don't in our studio fire to cone 6, but it's important to remember the difference between those two. I also want to remind you one more thing, and this chart is only about temperatures. It has nothing to do with oxidation reduction. Remember, the atmosphere in a kiln is independent. So you can have an atmosphere that is reducing in a high or low fire kiln, just like you can have an oxidizing atmosphere in a high or low fire kiln. The oxidation doesn't impact the cone, doesn't impact the temperature. All right?